So if you think about and you step back and you think about the British elite, and I did this in a video when I talked about how Britain mistreated the Irish in colonialism, the people of the American colonies and people of India. And you really look back, the British royalty really had nothing in terms of resources. Britain is a very small country, and yet they were able to dominate the world. And you have to really ask, how do they do that? When Britain, as I mentioned, went to China to trade, the Chinese said, what are you talking about? This is in the 16, 1700s. They had nothing. When they came to India, India at the time, 25% of the wealth of the world came out of India. Textiles, gold, spices, etc. Britain had really nothing to trade. So the only way Britain was able to succeed was through one vehicle. One word epitomizes this: brutality. Sheer brutality, pure evil, just brutality. And you recognize, I just saw a movie, John, what was that movie we saw with Michael Collins? John, what was that movie we saw with Michael Collins?
It's literally called Michael
Oh,
Collins.
so their movie called Michael Collins, and the movie is about the guy who started the Irish Republican Army, and he was shot and killed when he was 31. But you see in the movie, there's a scene, which is another bloody Sunday, where the British just go into a soccer stadium and just mow down people, unarmed people. Exact same thing that they did in India. So if you think about the psychology, somebody among the elite said, look, we really have nothing. We don't have really much arable land. We only have one growing season. We don't really have any resources. So how are we going to dominate the world? Brutality, sheer freaking brutality. There is no other way. So you basically cross a line. You become absolutely brutal. And so when you look at a country like India, the wealth that it had, and I'm not saying this because I come from an Indian American background. If anything, I'm more American. I look at what occurred to the American colonists. They fought back in a very powerful way, which I have great regard for. And then finally took a bit of time for people in Ireland to fight back. But it was through brutality that the British elites still succeed. They're still poking the bear. They're the ones who have started this war between Ukraine and Russia. They're the ones who started World War I, World War II. They always drag everyone else into wars. It's through brutality and domination thinking. The British royalty, I'm not talking about the British people who get screwed also as a part of this, are the only people who should dominate the world. And that has not ended. And the essence of the British royalty is to not only use brutality, that's one arm, but the other is pure propaganda and brainwashing. So through brutality and brainwashing is how the British royalty or the royalty succeeds. So what is the brainwashing? The brainwashing is to always ameliorate class differences while they actually practice massive class war between a small set of elite against the rest of us. And that is what occurred during the overt feudalism. A very small set of people used to subjugate masses of people. Today, we have a neo-feudalism. We have a modern feudalism. And it's a set of billionaires who are essentially obliterating the rest of the world. And no one wants to talk about this. No one wants to talk about what's going on to working people in the United States, globally, in Britain, all over the world. But I want to remind you of a couple of things that are taking place that's important to understand. Just some facts that's occurring right now. And that's why I say the show is being promoted, because if you actually analyze the show, they basically almost democratize all of this. Oh, the servants and the royalty, they all get along and it's one big happy freaking family. It's not true. The reality, if they were truly historically accurate, they would have done the accuracy to the way the servants actually were. 10-year-olds being treated as slaves, women being treated as prostitutes. And yet you have all these women glamorizing this freaking show, which generates hundreds of millions for them and their advertisers, and also serves a political agenda to take us, the masses, and people who watch it, to make them feel good as though we're all one big fucking happy family. It's not true. Let's look at the reality to show what's going on. Here's some facts, okay? 70% of Americans in the Pew report felt that the next generation will be worse off than their parents. That's 70%. And this is not just the masses. Now, young people across the country, and this comes, from the analysis of Joel Klotkin, who did a deep analysis on this, and he looked at the Pew report. Young people across the country are pessimistic as well. Most people, 15 to 24, also think that their life will be worse for them than their parents. So think about what we're saying. We're saying that 70% of Americans are convinced that the next generation will be worse off than their parents, and people 15 through 24 think they're going to be worse off than their parents. So that's the mindset of where people have come to. So a show like like Downton Abbey is intended to re-brainwash people or brainwash people away from that reality. And these are the results. Okay, this is a reality. The share of American adults who live in middle-income households has decreased from 61% in 1971 to 51% in 2019. That's 10%. It's almost 30 million people, okay? And the pandemic appears to have accelerated this pattern, hitting low-income workers hardest while the recovery helped them the least. Meanwhile, at the top are raking it in. CEO compensation reached record levels. Investment bankers on Wall Street enjoyed record bonuses, and the giant tech firms now boast a market cap greater than the bloated federal budget. And as Klotkin says, as millions struggle to fill their tanks to pay their rent, sales of business jets to the rising ranks of billionaires have soared to great heights. So you have this explosive class difference taking place in the United States. You can look at it not only in the US, in every country. So isn't it very nice to have a show come out like this, which basically says the servants and the royalty, they're all sort of get along. It's all, they're one big happy family. Yeah, there's little soap operas here, but it does not show the brutality of how the maids were treated. In fact, you have to understand, maids were treated so bad that they weren't even allowed to participate in workers' movements because they were even below the workers. That's what's interesting. These shows are not just entertainment. Someone, I think, wrote on the Facebook post, this is just how things were in those days. People were treated like slaves. The point is, you're right, but the show doesn't show that. The show purposefully hides that, but wins awards on its historical accuracy. When it's not historically accurate, it's deliberately propaganda by omission. And that's what I hope all of you take away. What I hope you take away is to recognize that these shows that make it big like this achieve it because they have to get distribution. I'm sure there's a lot of talented people listening out there. Many of you could probably have written great shows, or maybe you have a great movie or script, but it's about distribution. And this distribution is not decided by the greatness of the show. It's decided by what agenda it will serve. It is like big pharma selling something to generate capital for them, but to perpetuate their existence. Well, here, the elites are going to generate money by people watching these shows, but it perpetuates their existence because it ameliorates the actual class differences that are taking place. That's why this show is pure propaganda. It's brainwashing. And everyone should be frankly angry at this. These people go party. They talk about their woke, Me Too, Black Lives Matter. Yet they make profit from shows, win awards, win Oscars of a show that actually does not bring about the brutality of what took place to the women servants of the time. And that's what we need to understand. And this is why we need to look at all of this from a system standpoint. These shows don't exist in a vacuum. These shows are being played. Remember, this show was called Upstairs, Downstairs. It was around on PBS in the 70s. It was actually a little more accurate then. But by the time, the PBS crowd in the 70s was, sort of your educated, scholarly people would watch it. But now they've taken the show and ameliorated these class differences to make it a consumer product so everyone will consume it and feel good that they're being screwed over, but everything is fine. We're all one big freaking happy family. So that's what this is about. This is yes, lifetime plus 70 years after, someone said this, lifetime plus 70 years after is slavery for the entertainers. Yeah, so the entertainers, they themselves are part of this, right? Because remember, very, very few people among the entertainment community really have any talent, who actually trained and worked hard, etc. 99% of them prostitute themselves, slept with the right people, had very little talent, are celebrities. Celebrity is very different than a consummate actor. And a consummate actor making that is very, very rare. So these shows are distributed, they're promoted, they serve a political agenda. So in a nutshell, Downton Abbey serves the agenda to brainwash people. Everything is fine among all of us. We're all one big happy family, yet we're seeing this explosive class differences. That's why it's propaganda. What I want to share with everyone is I've given the analysis. And the reason I give this analysis is, sure, go watch the show if you like it, but recognize what you're watching is it's like taking an aspirin, or taking a drug to make you forget stuff. That's what you're really doing. But if you're taking it to think it's just entertainment, I want to wake you up to the reality. It's not just entertainment. It is propaganda. But if you're aware it's propaganda, then you will observe it as propaganda and you'll see it for what it is. And then maybe you can, as you're being entertained, you'll know that you're being entertained and you won't let it brainwash you. And what's the solution? Well, the solution that you recognize is that we have to see things as they are. We have to build a bottoms-up movement. But most importantly, we have to educate, educate, educate. Those in power have incredible, incredible power and foothold on media, the educational system, the mainstream educational system. And my view is the way out of this is for us to take a systems approach to understanding everything, to learning to think beyond left and right as a scroll bar I'm doing. So it would be one thing for me to do these analysis and critiques, but it would be wrong if I didn't offer a solution. And the solution that I've come up with is over the last 50 years, as someone who grew up in a caste system in India, as an untouchable caste, understood this and had a deep love of science. Over the last 50 years, I've integrated to discover a curriculum that anyone on the planet can understand and do this kind of systems analysis. So we go beyond left and right. We see things as they are. So that over the last 5 or 7 years, I put together a curriculum which we made accessible, which you can actually A, understand the science of systems, B, connect with other people globally so you can at least feel like you have a group of people who can talk about politics or health or education from a beyond left and right view. We've created a whole technology platform for that. And then C, for you guys to connect together as warrior scholars to actually go educate others, a learn, teach, and serve model. So I hope the analysis I do, the videos I do, I hope they're educational, but I hope it compels you to want to take responsibility and to learn the science of systems, which you can't really get anywhere else unless you pay lots and lots of money. I've made it accessible to everyone. So you get a scholarship so you can study it and you can give it away to your kids and children. And that's what the world needs right now. We need to awaken working people to see things as they are so we don't get brainwashed. And that was my real reason in doing this. I mean, you could do this on a number of other shows. Downton Abbey is an excellent example because it really tries to ameliorate these class contradictions. So I hope you take advantage of that. I hope you recognize that we need to build a bottoms-up movement. And I hope all of you go take the systems course and recognize where we are at as a world, that those in power are very, very clever through politicians, through dividing us into left and right, or ameliorating these class differences to make it lull us into a sleep. So I hope you guys enjoyed this and do your own analysis. Watch these shows. Yes, sure, go get entertained, but understand what you're watching, that by the time it hit mainstream media and got out there, it had to go through a lot of vetting and a lot of censoring and a lot of political agendas to get it out there. And when you see these actors and actresses who claim they're for you and are part of this and know that it's not historically accurate, you have to recognize that they're basically celebrities. They're not really actors, and they have golden handcuffs, and they're basically prostituting themselves, and they frankly have very little ethics for true art. Art is a movement of the time, as someone said, and ultimately great art reflects the actual time. It doesn't veneer it. It doesn't make the times something else it isn't. That's propaganda. But great art reflects the actual moment of what's actually taking place.